Hi, good afternoon, and you're very welcome to this episode of Always Getting Better with Enterprise. And as always, we are just a month later since the last release. And as always, the latest release, Chimaera, if you're wondering how to pronounce it, landed on Monday morning. And in suitable fashion, it landed without any interruption to your downtime and brought some great, wonderful new features full of value that we hope you'll be able to take full advantage of and certainly on board within your teams and within your workflows and organizations. So without further ado, as always, let me just share with you what it is that we brought. And what we try to do every month, as always, is to bring value, and particularly value around data entry for you on screen. How do we make that information go in faster so that you can process that information, and more importantly, report on that information and analyze it further to get the information that is important to you. So let me just start by sharing my screen, and we will just remind ourselves exactly what some of those key features are that landed on Monday morning. So let me just quickly share and we will kick this straight off. So first and foremost, we have the service calls we brought to the system in order to track the value of time spent on services and on the services industry and on service calls. So whether that's somebody that's sitting at a desk like ourselves, perhaps that are taking support calls and inputting and recording key pieces of information from conversations with customers or emails that are coming through, or perhaps bookings of appointments out on site, it was important to understand and to see the overall cost of what it was costing time-wise, factor-wise against that particular service call. In addition to that as well, you will have engineers and technicians that are on the road, and perhaps they're going out with the services mobile app and they're updating the service calls and the time that's being spent against those as well. So it's important that we capture that scheduled time, so any time that's spent out on site, and that it's fully recorded against the different users on a service call. So how does it work? Well, it's very simple in that when the feature is simply enabled, you can simply assign an hourly rate to each of the users. So whether that's the handled by user, so like for example myself, if I was just populating the service call directly on the platform and updating it, or for a technician or engineer out on site, you can also have the hourly rate stored against that user. There are a couple of other additional permissions as well that you can assign against that user, and we will look at those during the live demonstration. That makes it easy for you to turn on or off if there's certain information that's sensitive and that you don't want all users to actually see directly on the service call or on the grid itself. So very simply, there's a timer that sits on the service call that users can simply just click on start, clearly obviously define what it is they need to update around the service call, populate the information, stop recording of the service call, and then it will automatically update that service call. And that's all without the manual entry, without then having to go to maybe a separate spreadsheet and update the cost against all of your service call activities. And this works really nicely along with all of the other key pieces of information that we've added to the platform over the last few months, particularly around SLAs and KPIs, being able to track the time that it takes, number one, to get around to updating a service call, to support your customers, and of course, what it's costing you as a business to provide that service then to your customers. So this is just another great entity on top of all of those great features that we've already provided over the last number of months. So you get an overview then of the overall cost associated based on that particular service call. And of course, because it's key information on a service call, it returns directly to the grid. And with all grids, as you know, with the service call grid, we have the filtered reporting option where then you can very simply design and generate your own analytics, your own reporting around the key pieces of information that you've already recorded on the service call itself. So another great value add for this month And moving on then to our item screen. So on the item screen, what we've done here is basically improved the quantity display. So as you know, from month to month, we are going through a lot of UI changes, bringing you key pieces of information, but making it clearer to you, the end user, so that you can make those decisions faster with the information that you have to hand. So rather than having to go from one screen to another and drilling in from one grid to another, we're bringing in more direct information on the item record itself. So those key quantity figures, such as you're in stock in all warehouses, you're committed to customers. So what's on order for your customers? So whether that's your sales orders or your open reserve invoices. Committed to production. If this was a component of a bill of material item, what have we committed to production in terms of quantity? Then the overall, of course, free stock on the basis of those first three figures. On order from suppliers, what have we got on order from our suppliers? What purchase orders are in the system? On production not made applies directly to your parent items or your bill of material items. So this would be your manufactured or production item that you're going to produce at the end of, for example, a production run on a weekly, monthly, whatever frequency basis. But this would be the quantity held on production for that bill of material item. And then ultimately, with that factored in as well, what is the available stock? So we're just making those items, those particular quantities clearer for you to analyze, make those stock decisions faster. You obviously see that information as it stands anyway on your stock items grid, but when you're in the item master record, you had key pieces of that information. So we're just going to make that a little bit clearer. And just to help you out as well to understand where the calculations for those items come from, we've got an information button as well, as you can see there, against a few of those quantities. And you can simply just click on the information to understand where the calculation is from as well. Some of those quantities are also clickable. So that means, for example, the in-stock in warehouses, when you click on that quantity, you'll get one of our lovely WISE panels on the right, and that will give you the stock postings for that particular item. So exactly the traceability of where that item has been received in and issued out of stock. So all the receipts and issues of stock. So all the movements of that particular item. And of course, as I said about the rest, committed to customers, your orders and reserve invoices, on order from your suppliers, and so on. So lots of key pieces of information there. In addition to that, we've also added on a new sales tab. So just to make it very clear, the sales tab really all it does is it tracks the revenue, and revenue is your invoices and also your open reserve invoices. So the sales tab will track just your sales invoices and your open sales reserve invoices. So it's not an order, it's not a delivery, it's actually revenue transactions. So your sales invoices and reserve, and you can see there across the screen, you clearly get to see exactly what it says in terms of the quantity, the price, the posting data, the transactions. And you can also see that that sits on a grid basis, which means it can be, again, built into a report so that you can actually report on that grid on the basis of the quantity that was sold. So some really key pieces of information, again, that allows you to analyze pieces of your revenue directly from the item master record itself. So I think another great value add again this month to help you further with making those decisions around stock fulfillment, potentially stock outages, and of course around the revenue of that particular item as well. And for the third item that I'm going to focus in on in terms of main features, we have a new warehousing module. So what we've done here is we have, first and foremost, I need to make you aware of the existing picking screen. So the reason why this was brought in was to make warehouse management easier, accessible to everybody, and all within one module as well. So what it enables you to do is a couple of things here. You can do your current whole order picking. So the picking menu that was in your items menu has now moved here to your warehousing menu. And for anybody that doesn't see this yet, that's all down to user permissions. And the user permission is specifically, again, against your users. So in settings, user settings, you click into your user, and if you come down to the items section, there is a tick box there to assign a picker. That's the option that will switch on the warehousing module for you and will show you the whole order picking option. In addition to that, what we've done is we've extended that even further again. So if you can remember from the Artemis update that we did last month, so we introduced for the first time potentially advanced bin locations, which is basically where you can track quantities by bin location. So this means that for all of your warehouses, an item can reside in multiple bins. It's a very specific setup that's required within the organization. So it would require additional conversations, of course, with your account manager or with us, obviously, in-house here as well. But by having an organization with tracking the quantity by bin, you get additional functionality here within the warehousing module. You will be able to create and manage pick lists. That can be done by customer or by zone. There's priority picking. So if you want to ensure that certain routes or certain customers always get catered for in terms of stock availability, that gets delivered to them as a priority basis, you can set priorities against customers. And of course, ultimately what this does is it speeds up being able to create the pick list, will speed up order picking and fulfillment because we're looking at precise locations with bin levels and of course with zone picking. So in essence, it's going to alleviate errors over time, being able to see exactly where stock resides, where it needs to be picked from, and of course, who it needs to be packed and delivered onto then. So when you create the pick list, there's lots of different filters that we'll see just during the demonstration of what you can potentially do, and then bring that through to the pick list, which ultimately then integrates seamlessly with our WMS, which is our warehouse management system on the handhelds, so that the relevant pickers can then go and pick that stock and of course get it ready for packaging and delivery then for your customers. So lots of key functionality, and as I've said, the extended warehousing menu, particularly from create pick lists and the WMS piece, are all in relation to tracking the quantity by bin, which is our advanced bins that we introduced back in the previous update in Artemis for February. And of course, the updates don't stop there. We've obviously been very busy. This particular month here for Chimaera, we've actually released 15 plus features just in this release alone. And I mean, that's testament to our developers, but more importantly, that's testament to all of the requests that we receive on an ongoing basis from yourselves, from the end users, and listening to you and taking on board potentially what could be seen as, a great add-on and a great feature for all of our customers and all of our users. So as always, the update didn't stop there with those 3 features. If you've been following all of the emails that have been coming out to you, and of course, ultimately our website, which, by the way, we would love your feedback on. We've launched a new website this week. So it's still enterpryze.com, www.enterpryze.com. Do take a look at it. And obviously in our resources page is where you get access to all of the wonderful information, particularly around our roadmap and our blogs detailing everything that is taking place every month with all of our updates. So to continue on here with Chimaera, you can see very clearly we've got a lot of other wonderful, valuable features that have also been added to the system to bring you even more value. So we can see there under services, again, just extending the services offering this month. Under the service calls grid, we have an enable auto refresh on the service calls grid. So this just ensures that, for example, a team lead, somebody that needs to be aware of all the SLAs, what's happening with the service calls as they're coming through the system, could be sitting there looking at the grid and wondering, has Joe across the room updated that particular service call? Well, we have a little toggle switch now for switching on that will do an automatic refresh. So if the team lead or management or somebody in directorship is looking at the grid for all the service calls and wondering, are those SLAs accurate? Are they up to date as of right now? They can just simply switch on the auto refresh, leave it refreshing every 60 seconds, and it keeps that list up to date at all times. Now, of course, if a service provider is in and out of a service call and updating, a technician is updating a service call, of course, that's going to update imminently, but just keeping that grid at all times for review, particularly around SLAs. In addition to that, on the service calls, we've introduced, again, this was based on a request from a few of our customers around making transactions a quick entry. So this is where you're on a service call and you want to do a quick entry quote or a quick entry sales order without having to fill in all of the rest of the information. Somebody can still go back in then, of course, to sales and update and add in any additional or advanced information. So we've got a nice little switch and module settings, which you can enable. And then the users within the full organization will have a reduced quick entry directly on a service call for a quote or an order, for example. And then just continuing on down there, you can see a couple of great features that we've brought in around the service, around the settings, the file importer. We've got additional fields that can now be imported for your customer object. So if you're importing for the first time or updating existing customers, we've got a great added value again, just in terms of the UI on your company records. So if you're on a customer or a supplier and you click on the new actions button, and as you know, if you click on new sales order or new quote, it always brought you straight into a new item quote or a new item order. Now we've brought in a nice little sub menu that gives you the option to say item or service. So just another great value add there against your company records. And then of course, all the additions that we've brought in for WMS to support what we've done there in the warehousing module around the pick list processing, delivery packing. We've also got new permissions that we've also added into the web backend. So that would be in settings, modules, settings, user settings. We've now got WMS settings that you can then define against each user for the WMS application. We've got bin level stock count and stock take to support that advanced bins. And of course, we've got some warnings around doing stock adjustments without a cost as well. Couple of other things there, and one of them actually just at the very end there, the timeout. You've probably already noticed that over the last couple of days. The timeout that was 20 minutes has now been extended to 2 days. So you'll be left logged in for 2 days unless you log yourself out. So we are listening. We're taking all of this on board. So do please check out all of the wonderful additions that we've made. And if you need access to any of the demonstrations, check it out on our website. And I'll remind you just very quickly before the end where you can see those. So let's quickly jump into the live system. And let's start by quickly taking a look at those first 3 features that I mentioned, just to show you where everything resides within the system. So let me quickly share my screen for you. And we'll start here and share. Okay, perfect. So here we are, and I'm going to start off obviously with the services. So this is around the service call costing. So let me show you first and foremost where you actually switch this on, enable it for the organization, and then where you record the rates for the users. So very quickly here in settings, module settings, under the services panel here, the top in the middle, there's a tick box here to enable service costing. Simply switch that on. Number 1. Number 2, we come in here then to our user settings. And then for each user, service user or technician or engineer that's out on the road, you come in here to edit those users. And for each organization that this will apply to, you need to scroll on down again to services. And you can see here, we've got an hourly service cost that I can apply then to the user. And we've also got 2 additional toggle switches that I did mention about controlling what information those users will actually see on the screen. So do you want the user to see the user call cost or not? You switch that on or off. Do you then want them to edit time entries? The edit time entries piece, I'll show you exactly what that means. So that's every time they start and stop that timer and record time spent on a service call. That's the time entry. If you leave this switched on, it means that the user can actually go back in and update that specific timestamp, increase it, decrease it. So that will change the costing of the service call. So you get to decide what it is that they see at that point in time. Otherwise, they can still start and stop the timer. They just won't see the key pieces of information that you are recording for visibility. Perfect. So that's done. And then onto our service call itself. And let's just review their service call. So into service calls. And I'm going to pop into this one here, 262. And we'll just have a look at this one here. So what I've done with this particular service call, I've got myself assigned. So I'm the handled by, or I'm the user that's assigned to this particular service call. So we can see that here. Okay. So that's the first thing. I've also got a technician, a primary technician. So I'm again, situation here where we have a primary technician who's going to go on site. And in fact, I have them going on site for tomorrow, and I need to schedule that in. So that's the plan, is that they go on site tomorrow, or perhaps it's a call over the phone, whatever it is that you've assigned for this particular primary technician. And I've given a total time, which is the normal sub time that's there, is 15 minutes. So bear those two things in mind, and both users have a different rate as well assigned to them. So what I've also done here is I've recorded some little bit of time already against the service call. So I can see the total user time, which is me. So of course, imagine this is 7 minutes. We'll update the timestamp and extend that just to make it look a little bit better. And you can see there the total technician time, 15 minutes. And we can see there a separate cost for both. Okay, and then of course at the bottom here, the total time. Okay, so the total time and then the total cost. So I want to spend some time on this service call, and maybe I'm updating it, I'm adding information, I've had a call with the customer. So what I'll do is I'll hit on start, and whether I'm in a preview mode, which is what I'm in at the moment, and then I might decide, well, actually, I need to update the call as well. So I need to click on edit, and I want to pop in some more information. So whether I'm populating the custom fields, whether I'm going to add an activity. So I'll just put in here, spoke to the customer. Maybe it's just a quick note I want to add in. I can obviously do that from here as well. So just imagine that's what we're doing. We're just updating it. If I click and save at this point in time, it will automatically stop the recording, or I can simply just click on stop here. So let me just click on save, and it will update the service call. And we'll say no to that. I don't want to email everybody all at the same time. Fantastic. And you can see there that the time has increased. Nice and easy. What I can do now is I can now drill in to that 49 seconds, and I can see all the previous timestamps. So all the other time that I've spent on the particular service call. And of course, I can drill in and amend that, and I'll go 4 seconds. How did that happen? Okay, I must have just hit stop. So maybe it was actually 10 minutes. So I'm just actually going to increase that one, save that. So this is that toggle switch I mentioned in settings. So whether or not you allow the user to edit the timestamps, that's what that means here. So as soon as I edit that timestamp, you can see here back on the service call, it's already incremented the timestamp as well. So straight away I can see how long somebody's spending on a service call, what the cost of that call is taking as well for that particular primary user or engineer, or the user or the queue that I've assigned to that particular service call. Maybe it's the same person, so I won't see any difference, or I won't see anything on the technician time if I've nothing scheduled. What's important here as well is that when I return now to the grid itself, so if I'm a team leader or manager and I want to analyze the information and I want to view and see, well, where do we stand in relation to all service calls? What's it costing? So here on our elliptical menu, you can click in here to a column chooser, and very simply, let me just type in total. So if you want to see all those fields, they're all under total here. You can see them all. So I can click and drag and bring the relevant information. So total user cost, all that information that we just saw on screen for that particular user, and of course, more importantly, the overall cost. And we can bring that all here and display it directly on the grid as well. So you can see there your total cost so far. So this is 262 here on the second line and all the different costs. So that means now I can go to my filtered report and start building reports for analytics and analysing that information as and when I need it. And then it'll always be here on my filtered reports then to run it as I need it. So that's the first part. So it's a great value add. So I'd suggest you have a look at that and see if that's something worth taking on board for yourself. It's a great one, particularly around services and engineers, to understand the value and the cost of having somebody go out on site or spending the time sitting on the phone and what its true cost is for the organization. Next up, we have the items. Let's quickly change over to the items themselves. So let's have a look at the UI here. It's very simple. I'm just going to drill into starting off here with a bill of material item. We saw this on the print screen. It's very simple. We can clearly see here we've got the quantities on display. So when I scroll down here, we've got our in stock in warehouses. If I click into that one, I can see all the stock movements to date, exactly where it started in terms of stock in and stock out, and how it's come down to being a balance of one as of today. So I can see all of those movements and the different transactions, which I would normally get from my stock posting report anyway. The same on my committed to customers. I can click here to launch the WISE panel to see what's on open orders, or of course, if I had reserve invoices as well, because that's committed stock as well. And so on as I go through all of the different quantities. And I did mention here as well about the information buttons, giving you more information around how those calculations are all achieved. And of course, the bill of materials, because this is a production item, I also have a quantity here on production not made. So that only applies to my bill of material items. So I can see exactly what they are. So if we scroll down here then to the sales, this is where we have the new sales tab. And this clearly shows me any of the revenue that's been generated. So any of the sales invoices or sales reserve invoices for this particular item, the history of those will be listed here. I can clearly see for each one, the quantity, the warehouse, unit price, if any discount applied. I get a line total. So again, another great way to analyze and use the filtered report option and build up the reports that you need against those particular items. So this works directly on the item record itself. So the report is only specific to these transactions on this item from this grid at this point. So another great value add around your items. So I'm going to jump over into the next screen here, and just bear with me. I'm going to go into another organization because I need to show you an organization where we have the advanced bin switched on. Actually, maybe before we do that, so this is my standard organization. So for anybody that's not tracking quantity by bin, which is what we launched back last month with Artemis, you can see the warehousing menu. As I mentioned, this is where you have to switch on assign picker in settings. So that's in settings here, user settings. Let me just remind you where that is and quickly jump into myself here. Just to remind you where that currently resides if it's not being used at the moment. So if I scroll down here to the items, assign pick. Okay, and of course make sure the user has a default warehouse. So assign pick, make sure that's switched on, and of course the user has a default warehouse. Okay, that's the first thing. And if I now go to the warehousing module, you will see that we just have one option and it's only whole order picking. So this is the same as what you had in items. You had the picking menu here and now it's here under warehousing and it works exactly the same. So the big addition. So this is the extended piece where you're tracking the quantity by bin. Now we get to see not only whole order picking, but we also get to create pick lists. We also get to review those pick lists and assign them to a picker to then ultimately be picked up on the handheld and the WMS system and picked and of course packaged and delivered then for your customers. This works on the basis obviously of a couple of different settings. I won't go into everything here. There are a couple of different things in module settings just to mention, in particular on the items panel. But like I said, this is very specific to organizations that have tracking quantity by bin. So we have picking method that enables for both whole order and pick list, and that's why we get to see all of those options. And then of course for bins, which we saw in the Artemis release, if you want to rewatch the demonstration around the track quantity by bin, that confirms everything here in relation to the bins, the zones, and how that can all be configured as well. So back to warehousing, and very simply and very quickly, here we have a number of sales orders that I've added in for a couple of different customers, just for 2 different customers. We can now decide to run the pick list by customer or by zone. We've got our date. We've got some sub-filters here that we can choose, whether it's by warehouse, by customer, or by priority. So this is what I was saying to you about setting up priority routes against your customers. Those priorities are actually defined at the very bottom of the module settings screen, and then they are updated directly against your company. So here in companies, in the customer record, you then select the priority for that customer on the service tab. And then here on the pick list, you can then decide, well, I only want to look at customers with a high priority. I just need to focus here now and just get these deliveries into the WMS system. So you can see there my list actually updates and changes to this particular customer. I'm also now just going to generate a pick list based on the first 3 sets of orders. I can of course see here if I wanted to review any of these orders before I send them through. You can see there you've got item lines. You can drill in to see the item line details, as you can do already on the sales order grid itself as well. But otherwise, I'm going to take those 3. I'm then going to create pick lists. And what will happen now is it will now move over to the pick list tab, which is going to display the delivery packing warehouse, which again is something that you define under the WMS settings, which is the new web settings that we have for the users. And what we will see here is pick list number 8 to pick. And if we have a look in here, we can see then potentially, let me just make sure that that has refreshed. We can then have a look in to see potentially what items, what list of items. It might only be 1 unique item, or it might be 3 unique items as well within the pick list. So again, you can review the details and check to see what they are before we're actually looking at page 2. So maybe we'll go back to page 1. So pick list number 28 here, you can see there we've got no status against it at the moment, but we can see what's happened with the previous ones that have been complete, gone through to WMS and been picked, and so on. And of course, we can have layouts here against those for picking. And of course, when I'm ready, then of course we can have barcodes as well on the pick list if that's what you require to ensure that goes through for picking as well. You can see all the different items that we now have on the combined pick list. And what I can do there simply is select that pick list, assign it to a specific picker, and what will happen is that will then be picked up on the WMS application, and now that's ready for picking. So lots to consume there this month with Chimaera and with all the latest updates. And if there's anything there that you want to revisit and to try out and to test, I would highly recommend come here to our website, enterpryze.com, come in here to resources, come directly into the blogs, because this is where everything is in terms of the details. Come down here to the Chimaera Release, and you will get a link to all of the demonstrations. So see it in action. Wherever you see it in action, click here to get a step-by-step demonstration of the new feature and how you could potentially enable it and use it within your own organization. So that's it for this month. And as always, thank you so much for joining me in the Always Getting Better webinar. And as always, we will continue to get better and lots more to come in the next release as well for April, whenever that will be over the coming weeks. And we certainly look forward to welcoming you on board on the next webinar. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. Take care.